Hey guys, welcome to another video. This is Garv, and today we are looking at solving more interview questions for SQL. If you haven't checked my part 1 yet, again, do check that video out in which we solve questions for FAANG companies. Again, this video is kind of like I'm trying to make it as more like series where we solve different interview questions for different languages, not just focusing on SQL even. So for the first one, we solved SQL questions for FAANG companies. In this, I'm actually going to now solve some SQL questions, which is again medium and hard level for Airbnb. So for this, I'm using Strata Scratch website. Again, if you are preparing for interviews, again, I would recommend using something like this because you don't really have to worry about the data set or the questions or trying to Google them. You can just use the website to prepare. And again, you can choose the level of question that you want to answer, starting from easy, medium to hard, which will again give you a really good understanding if you're trying to learn a different language, depending on what you actually need to prepare for your interview. So again, without wasting any more time, let's jump onto these questions. I'm actually going to try to solve one medium question and one hard question and see how do we get on. Again, I'll be giving you some understanding on how do I approach these problems. So I hope you enjoy this and learn something from this video. If you do like the content that I'm providing, give it a thumbs up to this video. It definitely helps me to grow this channel and also bring this channel out to people who might be interested in my videos. So I really appreciate for you doing that. Okay, so let's read out the first question. As you can see on the screen now, so the question is a medium level question from Airbnb. Again, you can note the ID as well. So if you're trying to solve the same problem, you can definitely go ahead and do that. But in this, I'm actually going to try to give you an assumption how to actually solve this problem. So the problem is find the average number of bathrooms and bedrooms by city and property type, and the output of the result with the city name and property type. Okay, so whenever I read a question, I always kind of like try to split these questions into two parts. So one is obviously like if you read the question again, so we definitely need to do the average numbers of bathrooms and bedrooms. So obviously we'll be using average function in SQL. And then the second thing, when you see the output of the result along with city name and property type. So we do want to show the output in terms of that we have city name and property type. So again, we know that there has to be something that can actually bring that information into those two group levels. So which we'll be using group statement. So this is the way usually I solve SQL questions. Again, I always read the questions and try to split them into small parts so I can start solving one by one. And in the end, basically, I can bring them all together. This is how I usually solve SQL questions. Again, if you have some other way that actually works best for you, definitely go ahead and do it that way. For me, I usually prefer whenever I read a question, actually split that question into different parts so I can understand specific problem and then basically bring the code together. So for this, first we're going to look at what is exactly there in the tables, as I have just written here. So let's start from Airbnb underscore search underscore details. That's the table name. Once you click on that, you can easily see that there is ID, price, property type, room type. So again, to be honest, I don't really have to look at all the IDs. If I actually go back to the question itself, it says average number of bedroom and bathrooms. So first of all, what I'm actually going to try to do is try to solve the first part of the question, which is average number of bathrooms and bedrooms. So let's do that first, which is we have to use average function in SQL. So for this, I'm actually going to say average, and I have two columns. Obviously, if you see, the bedrooms are here, and then the same way we have bathrooms, which is up here. And that's what we are looking at, number of bathrooms and bedrooms. So I'm actually going to say something like average bathrooms. Even if I just run this code, you can see the average number of bathrooms in the whole table is 1.3625. I'm actually going to just name them as average bathroom. So similarly, what I'm actually also going to do is comma, and I'm actually going to do the same thing with average number of bedrooms as average bedrooms. If I just run this code, you can see I have here, which is my average number of bathrooms and average number of bedrooms. Again, this is again from the whole dataset point of view. But if I read the second part of the question now, which says that I have to basically do average number of bathrooms and bedrooms by city and property type. So the output of the result along with the city name and property type, again, the output should look like that we have two rows, one which is for city name and then the other one which is for property type, which is again against that we want to see what is the average bathrooms and average bedrooms. Now we already have that, so what I'm actually going to do is group them by, now first of all I want to show these two columns. which is going to be my city. And if I look at that, column name is city. And so the other column we are looking for is property type, which is there. So I'm just going to say property underscore type. Now, if I run this code right now, that's just going to give me an error because I do have two of these aggregate functions, which is averages for bathroom and bedrooms. And then I'm selecting two other columns, which is city name and property type. So if I run this code now, it will draw an error on the bottom because it would be looking for a group function to actually group on the basis of the rest of the columns that I've selected. So if I show you an example, obviously I'm going to get an error. But if I want to solve this, I can just say group by clause. And I'm actually going to group them by city. And I'm actually going to also group them by next, which is property type. Can actually show them in the next line as well. And once I run this code, so as you can see within the output, it looks at the city, which is again what city we are targeting, what is the city name, what is the property type, is it a house, an apartment or a villa, and then within that we are also looking at what is the average number of bathrooms, what is the average number of bedrooms. So I hope this kind of gives you an understanding of this is a medium level question. So next we are going to look at how to solve a hard level question. So let's look at that question as well. Okay, so next question. So we are going to look at the second question from Airbnb, which is a hard level question. So let's see how do we get on with that. Again, the idea is again same, that I'm actually going to try to break down my questions into a couple of pieces so I can actually solve them one by one, the same way we did the question one. So the question is, find the minimum, average and max price for each review qualification category. The review qualification is categorized by the number of reviews as defined below, along with the associated price. 0 reviews is no, 1 to 5 reviews is few, and 5 to 15 reviews is some, 15 to 40 reviews is many, and more than 40 reviews is a lot. Okay, so if you see within this question, I can easily draw a line, and they're kind of like really visible as well, that you have two parts in this question. The first part, which is again looking at the minimum, average and max price for each review qualification category. And again, I'm actually going to try to find these columns first. So these are the column names before I actually start drawing them down into separate pieces. So if I run this code, which is select star on the table, so we're looking at min, average and max price for each review qualification category. And in this case, the max, min and average price for qualification category is the category that we have to design ourselves. So that would be the second part of the question, which is again, if you look at this, review qualification is categorized by number of reviews as defined below. So first of all, we have to build these categories, which is again looking at these 5 categories. And on the basis of those 5 categories, we then have to basically review what is the minimum, average and the max price for each qualification category. So we can easily split them into 2 questions. One, we are building the categories first. Then secondly, we are doing the min max price, which is average price for that category. So again, the price value is here. So we are obviously going to do min on that. We are also going to do average and the max price by those categories. So let's try to first build the categories. So we can view our table, which is this. Again, the actual categories that needs to be built would be on the basis of number of reviews. The column we are looking at is number of reviews, because that's the column that will have the amount of reviews we have got on a property. Because again, as I can see in this, it is an ID and you have price and it's by a property type. So I'm assuming it's like obviously each house has its own number of reviews. So within this, I'm actually going to go back to here and see the number of reviews table. Oh, I'm actually going to see the number of reviews column. And in this case, as you can see, some of the houses have got 1 review, some of the houses got 2, 0, some of the houses have got 10 reviews. So let's try to build that categories first. So for this case, what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to use something like case statement. And if I go back here, so first of all, what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to give an alias A, and I'm actually going to just say here a dot star, and also I'm actually going to start my case statement. So case when a dot, and the column name is number of reviews. So in this case, whenever the number of reviews are, say for an example, the first category, which is 0. So if the number of reviews are 0, what I want to do is then we are looking at category to be as no. So we want to say something like in a categorical way, no. Similarly, now we don't have to write case again and again. We can just say when from this point, and I'm actually going to say something similar, which is a dot number of reviews. So now I can just use between because I want to have all the reviews that are between 1 and 5. So I'm just going to say between 1 and 5. And if that's the case, what I want to say is then it should be few. Similarly, I'm actually going to also create my rest of the categories. A dot number of reviews between, the next one is 5 and 15. Then I'm actually going to print, which is some. And then the next one is many, which is 15 to 40. Oops, should be dot. Between 15 and 40. Then I need to make it as that these are many reviews, then it should be many. When a dot number of reviews is actually greater than 40. Then we want to say that it is a lot. And in case if there is no reviews, or even if the column has been left as blank, I just want to say blank because I don't want to leave it as, maybe in some of the cases if it's actually not even 0 or any values are there in the column, I just want to also say something like else. We just want to leave it as blank. Or I can just say NA. So once I do that, I can actually execute this code. And what I want to also say is, what is my column name? So in this case, I'm actually going to create the column name as same, which is qualification category. So I'm actually going to say something like, because my case statement has ended now, so I'm actually going to say end as, and I'm actually going to print my column name, which is qualification category. So once I actually run this code, so as you can see, I should have another column which should be on the end of the code. So if you see this, where we have qualification category, which in this case, if the number of reviews in this case was 1, it said few because that was our category. If it's 1 and 5, and if it's in between, that should be few. Similarly, if I look at some of the examples on the bottom, and if it says a lot, we are assuming that there should be more than 40 reviews. And if I go back here, number of reviews, they are actually 140. So that's a lot of reviews. So that's how it basically defines this category into a new column. So once we have done that, so we have done one part of the question. Again, so the next part of the question is to find the min, average and max price for each review qualification. So let's try to do that. Now, first of all, obviously, I will be putting this code into a subquery because I do want to use my qualification category column. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to say something like this column, and I'm actually put that into and create an alias B, and I can literally just say select star from, and if I run this, it should give me exact same output. As you can see, there's no change at the moment happened to the code, but I just put my query into a subquery, and now I can access this variable which I just created, which is qualification category. So what I'm actually going to do is, in our question, we have to do is something like b dot qualification category, and I do want to do a something like, which is again back to our min, average and max price. So I'm actually going to say something like min, and within that b dot price. Secondly, it will be actually average first, so average b dot price. And the third one, oops, is the B there. Third one is max B dot price. So once we do that, And as we saw in the first question, again, if you ever use aggregate function in SQL, and if you do have another column as well, you do need to apply some sort of aggregation to this. Again, if you don't have any sort of, this is again, if it's as an attribute, what you can do is you can put them into a group by clause. So out of this code, I'm actually going to say something like group by, and I'm actually going to name my column, which is qualification category. Okay, I'm assuming I haven't misspelled anything. So I'm actually going to run this code. So as you can see, we have our qualification category, which is in my subquery, the column, which is a lot, many, few, no, and some. Against that, what we're doing is what is the minimum value of price, what is the average value of price, and what is the max value of price. So I hope it give you a kind of like good understanding on how to approach these kind of problems, and you can actually split the problem into a part and you can try to solve them one by one. So that's the way usually I try to approach the problem. If you do have your own way to solve these kind of problems, do go ahead and do that. And if this video gave you some sort of understanding on how to kind of like solve SQL questions, do click on that like button and do subscribe to my channel for future upcoming videos. Right now I'm creating a lot of different content on solving different interview questions on data science, which includes on different programming language, Python, R, and also looking at different maths questions. So I hope you enjoy those kind of videos as well. Do subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on anything, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.